Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive into the ideas that shape our lives. Imagine, for a moment, you're standing at a critical juncture.
Mm,
Maybe it's a professional challenge that tests your core integrity, demanding a decision that, well, aligns with your deepest values, even if it's unpopular.
right. Or maybe it's something less dramatic, even.
Or perhaps you're simply feeling overwhelmed by the sheer complexity and, the pace of modern life, navigating constant information overload and an endless stream of decisions, big and small.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
What do you lean on when the path isn't clear? What truly guides you when the easy choice isn't the right one?
That's a profound question, and honestly one that humanity has grappled with for millennia. From ancient philosophers to modern psychologists, thinkers across diverse cultures have tirelessly pursued what constitutes a good life, and maybe even more critically, what makes a good person.
And it's not just philosophy for philosophy's sake, is it?
Not at all. This isn't some dusty, abstract philosophical exercise. It's profoundly practical, touching every aspect of our daily existence. In a world just saturated with information where norms seem to shift constantly, getting to the very core of how to live well can feel like another daunting task added to an already overflowing plate.
Exactly. And that's precisely where this deep dive comes in. We're going to try and cut through the noise, distilling centuries of wisdom and contemporary insights into concrete, actionable strategies.
Okay.
Our core concept today is virtue. Think of virtues not as innate qualities you either have or don't, but as those fundamental qualities, behaviors, and intelligent habits that you actively cultivate.
Right. Things you work on.
They are the bedrock that supports your overall well-being, resilience, and true human flourishing. They are developed through intentional personal effort, insightful education, and of course, all those rich, often messy life experiences that shape us.
To help us navigate this fascinating and incredibly relevant terrain, we've pulled from a truly compelling array of sources today. We'll be drawing deeply from 3 practical and effective Stoic exercises from Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus, which offers us, a direct conduit to the profound wisdom of ancient Stoicism.
Love the Stoics.
Me too.
Mm-hmm.
We'll also be tapping into Mind Valley's comprehensive list of 80 examples of virtues, which provides a broad and inspiring spectrum of what good truly means across various dimensions of life.
And we won't stop there. We've got How to Practice Virtue Today and Every Day from short-form books, which masterfully summarizes the daily Stoic, bringing ancient Stoic principles into a modern, accessible context.
Very useful.
For a rigorous academic perspective that grounds these ideas in contemporary challenges, we'll dive into the role of virtue ethics in modern moral dilemmas from City Eye journals.
That one's key for understanding the why now.
Exactly. And to round it all out with a look at how these concepts apply to personal development and positive habit formation, we'll be referencing insights from a fantastic book called Super Habits.
It's a rich and vibrant tapestry indeed. This collection allows us to see how enduring these concepts are, seamlessly blending ancient philosophy with cutting-edge contemporary applications and psychological insights. It's a journey that bridges the gap between abstract thought and the very practical, lived reality of your everyday life.
So our guiding question for this entire deep dive is, how can understanding and actively cultivating virtue empower you right here, right now, to live a more fulfilling, resilient, and purposeful life, and truly tackle the complex dilemmas you face every single day?
Yeah.
And here's where this deep dive takes a truly surprising turn, because these aren't just abstract ideas from dusty old books. We're going to show you how they provide the ultimate toolkit for navigating the very real ethical minefields of our present day, leading you to a more resilient, ethical, and flourishing existence.
Sounds like a crucial conversation for today.
Definitely. So let's start at the very beginning with the concept of virtue ethics itself. Most of us are used to thinking about ethics in terms of rigid rules, right?
Yeah, like commandments, don't do this, don't do that.
Things like don't lie, don't steal, that's often called deontology, where the duty or the rule is primary. Or we might think about ethics in terms of consequences, asking, what outcome will this action lead to for the greatest number of people?
That's consequentialism.
Utilitarianism, essentially.
But virtue ethics takes a fundamentally different and I'd argue far more empowering approach.
That's a crucial distinction, and you've hit upon the core difference. Unlike ethical frameworks that focus solely on those rigid rules or, on the outcomes of actions, virtue ethics puts the spotlight squarely on character.
Character.
Okay.
It fundamentally shifts the question from what should I do in this specific situation to what kind of person should I be? The profound insight here is that virtue ethics liberates us from endlessly weighing consequences or rigidly following rules. It empowers us to build a foundation within ourselves so that the right actions flow naturally, almost effortlessly, from the kind of person we've become.
Ah, so it's proactive, not reactive.
Exactly. It's about proactive character building, not reactive ethical calculations.
And this isn't some new, trendy idea. Its origins trace back to antiquity, particularly to Aristotle's seminal work, Nicomachean Ethics.
A cornerstone text.
What Aristotle emphasized, and what I find so empowering, is that he didn't see virtues as innate traits that you either have or you don't, as if you're born with a fixed amount of courage or generosity.
Right, not like eye color.
Instead, he saw them as habits or qualities that individuals cultivate over time, through consistent practice and dedicated effort, much like you'd train a muscle.
And the ultimate aim of developing virtue for Aristotle was a concept called eudaimonia. This term is often translated as human flourishing, living well, or even the good life.
Eudaimonia, I like that word.
It's far more comprehensive and deeply satisfying than mere fleeting happiness or pleasure. Eudaimonia describes a life of deep satisfaction, profound purpose, and sustained excellence. A life lived in accordance with one's highest potential as a human being.
So not just feeling good, but being good and living fully.
Precisely. It's about achieving a state where you are truly thriving, intellectually, emotionally, and morally, realizing your full human potential. It's not about being content with average, but about striving for your best self.
A key part of Aristotle's framework, and one that offers incredibly practical guidance, is his famous doctrine of the mean.
Ah, the golden mean.
This is the idea that virtue lies as a balanced mean between two extremes, excess and deficiency. It's a powerful idea because it highlights that virtue isn't about being perfect in one extreme direction, but about finding the right harmonious balance for each situation.
The classic example to illustrate this is courage. Courage isn't recklessness, which would be an excess charging blindly into danger without thought.
Right. Foolhardiness.
Nor is it cowardice, which is a deficiency shrinking from all danger, even when action is required.
Yeah.
True courage lies in that balanced mean acting according to reason in the face of fear.
So it's about discernment, knowing when and how to be brave.
Exactly. It's about discerning the appropriate level of risk, facing danger appropriately, not foolishly rushing into it, nor shrinking from it entirely when it's necessary to stand firm.
And our sources provide another great relatable example that really hits home. Generosity.
Yes.
It's not about being wasteful, throwing money or resources around without thought, which is an excess. Nor is it about being stingy, holding on to every penny or resource, which is a deficiency.
The miser.
Generosity, as a virtue, finds that sweet spot in the middle, giving appropriately at the right time to the right person for the right reasons.
What's crucial to understand here is that the doctrine of the mean isn't about promoting mediocrity or, being lukewarm. It's about finding the right action at the right time, with the right feelings, for the right reasons, and towards the right people.
That sounds challenging. It requires judgment.
It absolutely requires practical wisdom, or phronesis, as Aristotle called it, to discern the appropriate response in each unique situation. Because the mean isn't a fixed point on a scale, but rather a dynamic sweet spot that depends on the specific context and the individual. It's the pinnacle of excellence in action.
Now, you might be thinking, this all sounds incredibly insightful in theory, a rich historical tapestry. But why does virtue ethics matter now in our hyper-complex, rapidly changing modern world?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
The CRE Journal source makes a strong, compelling case for its undeniable relevance in navigating today's most pressing moral dilemmas.
Indeed. Virtue ethics offers a remarkably robust and adaptable framework, precisely because it's not about rigid rules that can't possibly adapt to novel, unforeseen situations.
Like AI or climate change, things the ancients couldn't have imagined.
Exactly. Instead, it's about developing an internal moral compass. This compass provides adaptability for the nuanced, complex, and often unprecedented challenges that define our era. It moves beyond simply judging surface actions to addressing the deeper motivations and dispositions behind them, leading to far more consistent and authentic ethical behavior.
Okay, let's make that concrete. Let's look at some specific modern dilemmas highlighted in the CRE Journal's source and explore how virtue ethics applies. Take climate change, for instance.
A huge one.
Traditional approaches might debate international duties to reduce emissions or calculate economic consequences for future generations, but virtue ethics encourages cultivating specific, deeply embedded virtues within individuals and societies.
Right. For climate change, it emphasizes virtues like responsibility, prudence, and temperance. Instead of just focusing on external regulations or the grim outcomes, it prompts individuals and societies to foster these traits within themselves.
No, it's about changing us, not just the rules.
Precisely. This character-based approach promotes a long-term, internalized commitment to sustainable living, which is absolutely essential for an issue of this scale and gravity. When we look at global carbon dioxide emissions, which reached a staggering 36.44 billion metric tons in 2019, well, it underscores an immense challenge that requires sustained ethical commitment, not just policy tweaks. It's about developing the character to make difficult long-term choices for the common good.
What about the rapidly evolving world of artificial intelligence and automation? We're already seeing profound concerns around bias in algorithms, data privacy, potential job displacement.
Another complex web. Here, virtue ethics shifts the focus from merely establishing rules governing AI use, or just evaluating its outcomes, to fostering justice, fairness, and empathy among developers, policymakers, and users alike.
So building ethical AI creators, not just ethical AI rules.
Exactly. By cultivating these virtues, individuals and organizations are better equipped to navigate the ethical complexities of AI, ensuring that technology truly serves the common good and respects human dignity. It's about building ethical technology from the ground up, infused with a moral compass, rather than just regulating it after harmful impacts have already materialized.
And in healthcare, where life and death decisions are made every single day, especially in crises like a global pandemic, the ethical tightrope doctors walk is immense.
Virtue ethics is incredibly relevant here, becoming the bedrock of sound medical practice. For medical professionals facing dilemmas like the agonizing resource allocation during a pandemic, it emphasizes virtues like compassion, wisdom, and justice.
More than just following protocols.
Much more. It highlights the character and intentions of healthcare providers, promoting decision-making that is deeply sensitive to the nuances of medical practice, and expertly balances individual needs with the greater common good. A virtuous doctor isn't just following a checklist, they're embodying care.
What about business ethics? We've seen far too many corporate scandals over the years, eroding public trust.
Absolutely. Virtue ethics offers a compelling and preventative approach by focusing on cultivating integrity, honesty, and responsibility within corporate culture from the top down.
Culture eats strategy for breakfast, as they say.
It really does. When leaders and employees develop virtuous characters, it naturally fosters ethical business practices, significantly reduces the likelihood of scandals, and contributes to more sustainable and socially responsible operations that benefit all stakeholders. It moves beyond mere legal compliance to genuine, ingrained ethical conduct, building trust as a core asset.
And in our increasingly digital world, with pervasive concerns about data privacy, misinformation, and online behavior.
Digital ethics is a prime and critical area for virtue ethics. Virtues like honesty, respect, and prudence become vital not just for individuals, but for the platforms we use. Promoting digital literacy and ethical conduct online, guided by these virtues, helps mitigate pervasive issues like cyberbullying, the spread of misinformation, and privacy breaches.
So being a good digital citizen requires virtue.
It requires developing individuals who can navigate the digital age with a strong, adaptable moral compass, fostering a healthier online ecosystem.
Finally, we see it applied to something as vast and complex as immigration and refugee crises, which are defining global challenges of our time.
Yes, instead of just focusing on national rights or economic costs, virtue ethics encourages virtues such as hospitality, empathy, and justice. These virtues guide a more humane and compassionate response, emphasizing the moral imperative of welcoming and supporting those in need while simultaneously balancing the legitimate interests and concerns of host communities.
It shapes the attitude, the disposition.
Exactly. It shapes the very disposition towards these global challenges, moving beyond policy to character.
Beyond Aristotle, our sources briefly touch on other key thinkers who expanded on these ideas, adapting them to new contexts. For instance, Alasdair MacIntyre, a towering figure in modern philosophy.
MacIntyre's neo-Aristotelian virtue ethics, particularly in his seminal 1981 book, After Virtue, argues that modern moral discourse has become deeply fragmented and, well, often irrational because we've lost a shared, coherent ethical framework.
That feels very relevant today.
Extremely. He contends that Enlightenment efforts to create universal moral rules failed, leading to a breakdown in shared moral understanding. He advocates for a return to virtue ethics grounded in communal practices and shared ethical traditions, drawing heavily from Aristotle.
So virtue grows within communities and practices.
For MacIntyre, yes. Virtues are cultivated within these practices like a profession, a game, or a family, and they provide internal goods, intrinsic rewards that are distinct from external goods like wealth or fame. This focus on community and shared ethical frameworks is critical in our often fragmented and individualistic modern world, offering a way to rebuild common moral ground.
And Philippa Foot's concept of natural goodness offers another fascinating and somewhat biologically grounded angle to understanding virtues.
Foot's theory provides a modern interpretation that resonates deeply with our understanding of human flourishing. She posits that virtues are grounded in human nature itself.
That's so.
She argues that ethical evaluations are akin to evaluating the natural goodness of living organisms. Just as a good root system enables a tree to thrive and fulfill its natural function, a virtue, for a foot, is a characteristic that enables humans to flourish in their natural and social environment, to live well and overcome challenges intrinsic to human existence.
So virtues help us function well, like healthy roots for a tree.
Exactly. This provides a compelling, biologically informed basis for ethical evaluations, suggesting that cultivating virtue isn't just an abstract moral choice, but an alignment with what enables human beings to function optimally and achieve their full potential.
Okay, that gives us an incredibly robust theoretical and historical foundation, showcasing why virtue ethics is so profoundly relevant today. Now let's make these virtues tangible.
Right, let's bring them down to earth.
Our sources, particularly Mindvalley, provide a rich selection of specific virtues, often made even more vivid with wonderful examples from pop culture and real life.
This is where we make these abstract concepts relatable and actionable. Let's start with wisdom. It's often misunderstood as just accumulating a lot of knowledge or facts, but it's much more profound than that.
That's right. Wisdom isn't merely about intellectual accumulation, it's the practical ability to make good judgments based on that knowledge, understanding what is truly true, what is truly right, and what has lasting value, especially in complex situations.
It's knowing how to use what you know.
Think of Dumbledore in Harry Potter, who doesn't just give Harry answers, but guides him to deeper truth and helps him make the right decisions himself.
A great example.
Or consider Matt Damon's character, Mark Watney in The Martian, who, despite being stranded on Mars with limited resources, uses his scientific knowledge and ingenuity to devise creative, life-saving solutions. That's practical wisdom in extraordinary action.
Yeah, using knowledge effectively under pressure. Then there's resilience. Vishen, the founder of Mindvalley, offers a powerful quote that perfectly encapsulates this virtue. Sometimes in life you have to destroy what is merely good to allow what is truly great to come in.
Wow, that's deep. It's not just bouncing back then.
No, it's about transforming setbacks into launch pads. It's about not letting go of your resolve, having the sheer grit and mental fortitude to keep marching forward and bouncing back no matter how many curveballs life throws at you.
You see it perfectly personified in Rocky Balboa, training relentlessly, persevering against seemingly impossible odds, demonstrating that enduring spirit that simply refuses to quit.
Absolutely. It's the capacity to not just survive, but to grow stronger through adversity.
Next, we have temperance, often also called self-control or restraint. Our modern culture often prizes unrestrained desire and boundless expression, doesn't it?
It certainly seems that way sometimes. But a little restraint, as the Super Habit source points out, can go an extraordinarily long way in improving most people's lives across the board.
It's the profound ability to manage your emotions, impulses, and desires, navigating challenging situations with a steady, calm hand rather than being swept away.
The Super Habit source even insightfully rebrands meekness, a term often misconstrued as weakness or timidity, into something truly powerful. Gentle firmness.
Gentle firmness. I like that.
This isn't about being passive or submissive. It's the quiet, unwavering strength to live out your convictions, to harness intense emotions like anger and channel them productively, rather than letting them control or derail you.
So virtues aren't about suppressing emotions, but maybe educating them.
Exactly. Educating and channeling them in constructive, productive directions.
And this leads us naturally to courage. As Aristotle noted in his Doctrine of the Mean, it's the virtue perfectly balanced between recklessness and cowardice.
Allowing one to act according to reason and principle in the face of fear, rather than being paralyzed by it.
The Super Habits book provides an incredible, visceral, real-world anecdote that perfectly illustrates courage. The almost mythical story of the USS Ohio oil tanker during WWII.
Oh, I remember reading about that. Incredible story.
This ship was absolutely critical, part of a convoy to resupply Malta, and was hit repeatedly by bombs and torpedoes, yet miraculously remained afloat, defiant. The crew actually abandoned the ship twice under relentless attack, only to return to it, refusing to let it sink. That
Wow.
sheer level of grit, determination, and unwavering resolve in the face of immense, terrifying danger, that's a powerful and unforgettable picture of courage in its purest form.
Absolutely breathtaking. Then there's justice. This virtue involves acting fairly, upholding what is right, and ensuring equitable treatment in interactions with others and society at large.
And it's a big one, a broad foundational virtue that, as you mentioned earlier, encompasses many subsidiary virtues within its scope.
Right. And some of those crucial subsidiary virtues integral to justice include honesty, which is the cornerstone of trust, gratitude, acknowledging what is due, correction, ensuring accountability, friendliness, fostering positive social bonds, generosity, giving fairly, compliance, upholding laws, and respect, recognizing the dignity of all.
You can truly see how one cardinal virtue, like justice, acts as an umbrella, encompassing and requiring many others to be fully realized.
Definitely. Speaking of gratitude, the spiritual teacher Mahatria Ra makes a profound statement. Every virtue is delivered from the womb of gratitude.
Delivered from the womb of gratitude. That's powerful. What does that really mean?
It truly is. Gratitude is about profoundly recognizing that you are not solely responsible for all the good you've enjoyed. It's about acknowledging the countless contributions, seen and unseen, from others, from circumstances, and from life itself.
It counters entitlement.
Precisely. It's also crucial because it directly counteracts what Stoicism calls hedonic adaptation. That's the psychological tendency for humans to rapidly return to a default baseline level of happiness, even after experiencing significant positive events, like winning the lottery or achieving a long-sought goal.
Right, the novelty wears off.
Exactly. Gratitude actively breaks this cycle. It allows you to genuinely appreciate and find joy in each step of life's journey, whether you're starting with a simple box or you've achieved the dream of owning a Lamborghini. It's about being present and appreciative of what you have, rather than constantly chasing the next thing only to feel the same once you get there.
That's a huge insight for well-being. Finally, let's consider humility.
Often misunderstood, this one. It's defined as not being deceived by pride, seeing oneself truly and accurately, being genuinely open to others' worth and opinions, and actively avoiding boastfulness or excessive self-focus.
Both Super Habits and the Oxford Global Leadership Initiative, or GLI, emphasize humility as a truly foundational virtue.
They do. It disposes us to recognize our inherent limitations, our capacity for error, and our fundamental need for others, their insights, their support, their feedback. This recognition, in turn, powerfully encourages gratitude.
So humility and gratitude are linked.
Very closely. This dynamic creates what the GLI calls an upward spiral that significantly decreases self-focus and simultaneously increases positive affect, empathy, and other regarding behavior. It's a foundational piece for so many other virtues to thrive, acting as a crucial lubricant for healthy relationships and continuous growth.
Okay, so we've established what virtues are, why they matter profoundly, and looked at some key examples. Now let's unpack this. How do we actually build these virtues into our lives?
The million-dollar question, part 2.
This is where ancient Stoicism offers 3 incredibly powerful, practical exercises that have stood the test of millennia, proving their enduring effectiveness.
These aren't abstract concepts to ponder in an ivory tower. These are actionable mental and behavioral steps you can start taking today to fundamentally transform your perspective and build resilience. The first one comes from the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius. It's called A View from Above.
A view from above. Okay, how does it work?
The exercise itself is a visualization, a mental journey. You start by envisioning yourself, right where you are. Then slowly, you zoom out. Picture yourself from above the roof of your house, then your street, then your city, then your country.
Keep going.
Keep going, zooming further and further out until you can picture a serene, distant view of Earth from the stars. Then expand your mind to contemplate the vastness of time, not just your lifetime, but eons before and after.
Wow, that puts things in perspective.
Exactly. The purpose of this profound visualization is to gain perspective on the sheer insignificance of our immediate problems and personal anxieties when compared to the vastness of the universe and the eternity of time. Marcus Aurelius himself, a man burdened with the immense responsibilities of empire, found solace and wisdom in this practice.
What did he say about it?
He wrote, and I find this so powerful, You can rid yourself of many useless things among those that disturb you, for they lie entirely in your imagination, and you will then gain for yourself ample space by comprehending the whole universe in your mind and by contemplating the eternity of time. He goes on about the rapid change and short span of life.
So if you're feeling incredibly down because a date flaked on you, or a colleague said something insulting, or you're caught up in some trivial office drama,
Right.
this exercise can act as a profound mental reset. It helps you overcome those intense emotional hurdles by immediately putting the triviality of the issue into cosmic perspective. It's a powerful reminder of what truly matters, freeing you from disproportionate emotional reactions.
The second method, advised by the wealthy Roman philosopher Seneca, is called negative visualization. Despite the somewhat ominous name, this isn't meant to be dark or morbid in practice.
Negative visualization sounds counterintuitive for happiness.
It does, but it's actually a practice meticulously designed to increase your default level of happiness and gratitude, practiced consistently and mindfully.
How?
It involves deliberately envisioning what it would feel like to lose things you currently have, and perhaps take for granted. Imagine not having a roof over your head, losing your social status, or even living in circumstances as challenging as a third world country. Or consider what it would feel like to lose a cherished loved one, or a fundamental physical ability. The key is not to dwell on these thoughts in a morbid way, but to occasionally and briefly consider them, feeling a momentary pang of potential loss.
Okay, so the purpose isn't to be depressed, but
The profound purpose here is twofold. Primarily, to cultivate deep gratitude by truly appreciating what you do have in your life right now before it's gone. Secondly, it serves to mentally prepare yourself for potential worst-case scenarios, building a psychological buffer.
preparing for loss, in a way.
Seneca's wisdom captured this perfectly with the on-loan concept, emphasizing impermanence. Remember that all we have is on loan from fortune, which can reclaim it without our permission, indeed, without even advance notice. This simple but powerful concept fosters a mindset of appreciation rather than entitlement, shifting us from a posture of demanding to one of receiving.
And this directly, powerfully counteracts hedonic adaptation, that pervasive psychological tendency where we humans tend to return to a baseline happiness level even after experiencing highly positive events.
Right, the lottery winner example.
If you win the lottery, your happiness might spike for a while, but eventually you get accustomed to the new lifestyle, the new car, the new house, and you often return to your default level of contentment or discontent.
Yeah.
Negative visualization, practiced regularly, actively breaks this pattern. It allows you to be deeply grateful and content whether you possess a simple box to live in or you've achieved the dream of owning a Lamborghini. You learn to genuinely enjoy each step of the ladder rather than constantly striving for the next rung, only to feel the same once you get there.
A powerful antidote to the never enough mindset. Finally, we have voluntary discomfort from the Stoic slave-turned-philosopher Epictetus. This exercise involves deliberately putting yourself in moderately uncomfortable situations, consciously choosing inconvenience.
Voluntary discomfort, like on purpose. Why?
Yes, some practical examples provided by the source, and often practiced by Stoics throughout history, include taking cold showers, exercising first thing in the morning when you'd rather sleep, walking in the cold without a jumper when you could easily bundle up, fasting for a day, or even intentionally sleeping on the floor instead of a comfortable bed for a night.
Okay, but why do this? It sounds unpleasant.
The goal isn't self-punishment, but intentional brief discomfort. The profound purpose here is to fundamentally change your relationship with comfort itself. You're building mental and physical fortitude.
Training resilience.
Exactly. Once you overcome that intense, ingrained psychological reliance on comfort, life paradoxically becomes much easier, and your ability to pursue difficult goals becomes far less challenging. You're literally training yourself to be resilient, to withstand adversity, much like a Navy SEAL undergoes grueling training to prepare for extreme conditions. It's a psychological inoculation.
And Epictetus sums up the long-term benefit perfectly. But neither a bull nor a noble-spirited man comes to be what he is all at once. He must undertake hard winter training and prepare himself.
And not propel himself rashly into what is not appropriate to him. This practice hardens you, building an inner reservoir of mental and physical fortitude, preparing you for when, let's say, life throws its toughest curveballs.
These Stoic exercises are truly about building inner strength, profound appreciation, and a powerful sense of self-mastery.
Absolutely, they're incredibly practical tools.
So, we've covered the philosophical grounding for virtue ethics and explored some incredibly powerful ancient techniques for cultivating virtues in our inner world. But this raises a crucial question for our modern lives. How do we then systematically integrate these insights into the complex tapestry of our daily existence, especially if we're striving for personal growth, ethical leadership, or professional excellence?
Yeah, bridging the ancient and the modern.
That's where groundbreaking recent research on character development offers some illuminating, actionable strategies, particularly from programs like the Oxford Global Leadership Initiative, or GLI.
The GLI, for instance, focuses intensively on character development for postgraduate students during emerging adulthood, roughly ages 18 to 29. This is a crucial and often turbulent period of intense instability, identity exploration, and significant life choices.
A really formative time.
Absolutely. The GLI found that virtues like vocation, service, gratitude, and humility are not just abstract ideals, but are absolutely crucial for future leaders. And critically, they identified 7 Aristotelian strategies for cultivating these virtues in a structured, impactful way.
Okay, 7 strategies. Let's dive into the first one. Habituation through practice. This isn't just about reading a book or thinking about virtue. It's about active, consistent doing.
Exactly. The core idea, echoing Aristotle, is that virtues of character aren't just learned intellectually through lectures or books. They're acquired, ingrained, and strengthened by doing virtuous actions repeatedly.
Like learning an instrument, practice makes permanent.
Precisely. Just as a builder becomes a builder by the repeated act of building, we become just by consistently doing just actions. It's about developing what we might call intelligent habits. These are consistent, deep, almost automatic dispositions towards good, not just mindless routines.
And there's brain science behind this.
There is. Modern neuroscience actually shows how this works. When you repeatedly act virtuously, you're literally strengthening neural pathways in your brain, a process scientists call experience-dependent neuroplasticity. This makes those good behaviors more automatic, more natural, almost second nature over time, a concept also known as goal-dependent automaticity.
So you're literally rewiring your brain for virtue. How does the GLI specifically apply this powerful principle?
They employ several concrete exercises. For example, participants are encouraged to consistently keep a gratitude journal, a practice empirically supported for significantly cultivating and deepening feelings of gratitude.
Simple but effective.
They also actively challenge the pervasive heroic leader myth, encouraging participants to practice leadership not just in formal roles, but in everyday informal settings, such as discerning when to speak up in a conversation to add value, or when to respectfully step back and listen.
Everyday leadership moments.
Exactly. Importantly, the facilitators themselves actively model virtuous practices like active listening and respectful engagement, and participants are guided to reflect on their past leadership experiences to identify specific areas for character growth. It's truly about embedding the practice into every fiber of daily life.
That brings us to strategy 2, reflection on personal experience. Why is this deep personal introspection so vital for character development?
Developing practical wisdom, or phronesis in Aristotle's terms, fundamentally involves reflecting deeply on our experiences. This allows us to discern the morally relevant aspects of complex situations, to understand the subtle nuances, and to decide how to act ethically and effectively.
Learning from mistakes
Yes.
and successes.
This is precisely why wisdom is so often associated with maturity and extensive life experience. It's not just intellectual knowledge, but knowledge gained and refined through lived experience. Many psychological models of wisdom actually include a reflective capacity as a fundamental component, acknowledging its crucial role in learning and growth.
So the GLI really leans into this reflective approach.
They do, quite rigorously. They use structured reflection questions in applications and throughout discussions. For example, they might ask participants to identify good or bad leaders from their own lives, both personal and professional, and then deeply reflect on how those experiences felt and what lessons they imparted.
Making it personal and concrete.
Right. This approach is particularly effective for adult learners who intuitively connect new information and abstract concepts to their prior experiences, making those concepts concrete and actionable. The profound purpose isn't just to intellectually know what virtue is, but to guide the individual to become good through personal integration.
And sharing these reflections builds community.
Absolutely. Sharing these often vulnerable personal reflections in a safe, supportive space not only builds profound trust, but also fosters a strong sense of community as participants learn invaluable lessons from each other's lived experiences.
Strategy 3 is engagement with virtuous exemplars. It's about learning from powerful role models, both historical and contemporary.
This is an incredibly powerful and often underestimated motivator for character growth. Exemplars, what Aristotle might call the wise or prudent person, the phronimos offer tangible models to admire and emulate.
People we look up to.
Exactly. They inspire moral vision, increase motivation, and can even profoundly reshape our moral imagination, expanding our sense of what's possible. Empirical studies, for instance, show that admiration for another person's virtue is profoundly motivating, igniting a deep desire within us to be virtuous ourselves and to accomplish meaningful other-regarding actions.
Does it matter who the role model is?
Yes, interestingly, relevant and attainable exemplars, those with shared backgrounds, experiences, or challenges, are found to be especially effective because their journey feels relatable.
And the GLI incorporates this in so many thoughtful and multifaceted ways.
Yes, they ensure multifaceted exposure to exemplars. Participants are encouraged to reflect on personal examples from their own lives. They read biographies of historical figures who embodied great virtue, like Nelson Mandela.
Classic example.
They even engage with exemplars through art, such as a guided tour of the National Portrait Gallery, focusing on figures of character, or by analyzing characters in classical literature, like Shakespeare's King Lear, to understand wisdom and folly.
Using stories and art. Very cool.
The program also brings in diverse guest speakers, leaders from various fields who share their own challenges, struggles, and moral dilemmas in intimate, unscripted settings. Additionally, they provide a two-tiered mentoring structure with professional mentors and staff mentors, specifically designed to guide conversations focused on character development.
And the facilitators model it too.
Critically, yes, the GLI leaders actively model the virtues they aim to cultivate, such as vulnerability, active listening, and respectful engagement, which significantly increases the relevance and attainability of these virtues for the students.
That sounds incredibly comprehensive. What about strategy 4, dialogue that increases virtue literacy? This implies that virtue isn't just about feeling good, but about being able to articulate and understand ethical concepts.
Precisely. Engaging in structured, intentional conversations about specific virtues helps us understand not just what they are, but why they're important, and crucially, how they can be practiced in diverse and often challenging contexts.
Moving beyond just gut feelings.
Right. It moves us beyond merely debating abstract moral dilemmas to developing a practical virtue literacy, knowing the precise language, concepts, and frameworks needed to evaluate complex moral situations and make nuanced judgments. Research clearly shows that this kind of dialogue significantly improves moral judgment, deepens understanding, and enhances emotional awareness by allowing for multiple perspectives to be explored in a safe space.
So it's about more than just a lecture. It's about dynamic, interactive learning.
That's right. The GLI's program structure itself fosters this. Visiting speakers engage in open-ended conversations rather than just delivering monologues, and mentor meetings are deliberately designed as dialogues, not interrogations.
Real conversation.
They organize regular, structured, small group dialogues using short, thought-provoking readings. For example, a poem by Mary Oliver, or Rumi for Gratitude, or a critical article by Barbara Ehrenreich on the potential limits or downsides of gratitude, to explore different facets of a virtue.
Exploring the nuances, even the critiques.
Exactly. The facilitators act as co-participants, fostering a safe space for sharing experiences, ideas, and even respectful disagreements, which enables a richer collective meaning-making process. A fascinating potential expansion, perhaps for future iterations, could even involve training participants to facilitate these very dialogues themselves, which would even further deepen their virtue literacy, leadership skills, and ability to guide ethical discussions in their own communities.
Next up, strategy 5, awareness of situational variables. This feels particularly relevant in a world with so many external pressures and influences shaping our choices.
It truly is, and it's a critical component of genuine self-awareness. This strategy is about recognizing how external factors, everything from cultural influences and institutional incentives to our own inherent psychological tendencies, profoundly shape our character and behavior, sometimes without us even realizing it.
Understanding the context.
Right. This understanding helps us avoid attributing virtues or vices too quickly, making us more empathetic, and also helps us anticipate and navigate potential pitfalls. As Aristotle wisely advised centuries ago, we must examine what we ourselves drift into easily, and importantly, drag ourselves off in the contrary direction when those drifts are unvirtuous.
And the GLI uses some truly fascinating examples to illustrate this. How do they teach this awareness?
They employ two key strategies here. First, getting the word out, informing individuals about common psychological tendencies that can undermine virtue, such as the infamous bystander effect.
Where people are less likely to help if others are around.
Exactly. A compelling study showed that college students who heard a lecture explicitly explaining the bystander effect were significantly more likely to help in a staged emergency. 67% pass, just 27% of those who didn't hear the lecture. Knowing about the phenomenon helped them resist it.
Knowledge is power. What's the second strategy?
It's about selecting our situations, actively seeking out environments that inspire good behavior, and avoiding those with temptations or corrupting influences. The GLI heavily focuses on professional contexts, using powerful examples like a TED Talk on a rigged Monopoly game to illustrate how positional inequality can subtly but profoundly distort behavior and ethical judgment.
Wow, that Monopoly game study is striking.
It really is. Participants discuss readings on occupational hazards in professions like Wall Street and how the insidious nature of power can make political leaders cold-hearted. They also reflect on practices like solitude and deep reflection, such as Nelson Mandela's profound 15 minutes of daily meditation during his imprisonment.
Finding ways to resist the pressures.
And personal self-development efforts, like Benjamin Franklin's diligent pursuit of 13 virtues, as ways to actively resist or reform institutional cultures. A former member of parliament even shared his incredibly candid personal story of how the trappings of power gradually deformed his character, ultimately leading to perjury and prison time, providing a stark, real-world example of just how powerful situational influence can be.
A cautionary tale. Strategy 6 sounds like something we all need in our daily lives. Moral reminders. We're constantly bombarded with distractions. How do we keep our moral compass front and center?
This strategy is about regularly making moral norms and ethical commitments salient in our awareness. It serves several crucial functions. It helps us recall our personal ethical commitment. It alerts us to morally relevant features of situations that we might otherwise overlook. And it creates powerful psychological barriers to self-justification when tempted to act unethically.
Like a little angel on your shoulder.
Sort of. We inherently want to see ourselves as virtuous, so consistent reminders make it harder to act in ways that contradict that self-image. Empirical studies on academic cheating, for example, have shown that simply seating students in front of a mirror or asking them to recall the 10 Commandments before an exam significantly reduced cheating.
Fascinating. Simple interventions.
Honor codes on college campuses function similarly by making ethical conduct explicitly salient.
And the GLI integrates this throughout its multi-month program.
Their multi-month program of readings, discussions, and guest speakers provides consistent, regular moral reminders, helping to internalize norms and strengthen ethical commitments over time. This extended engagement is far more effective than short, one-off retreats or workshops, which often have fleeting impacts.
Consistency matters.
Definitely. Beyond the program structure itself, they also actively encourage participants to use personal moral reminders in their daily lives, such as sticky notes with a chosen virtue on a mirror, calendar notifications, or a chosen daily mantra, to consistently habituate the practice and reinforce their commitment. It's about building a constant internal dialogue with your best self.
Finally, Strategy 7, Friendships of Mutual Accountability. This highlights a profound truth that character development is rarely, if ever, a solitary journey.
It's profoundly true, and it's a cornerstone of Aristotle's ethics.
Sure.
We are deeply and profoundly shaped by our communities and by the people we choose to surround ourselves with.
You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Something like that. As Aristotle observed, even the most self-sufficient individual needs good friends. Good friends, specifically, contribute immensely to virtue cultivation by embodying virtuous practices themselves, engaging in meaningful conversations, providing opportunities for us to be beneficent and generous, acting as inspiring exemplars, offering crucial support during difficult times, and, critically, providing mutual correction, the gentle but firm feedback that helps us grow.
Friends who tell you the hard truths.
Exactly. The moral quality of these relationships truly matters. Virtuous friends genuinely make us better. Modern psychology, through group effects research, confirms that being surrounded by supportive, pro-social friends significantly enhances our own pro-social behavior. Even neuroscience suggests that brain waves are highly similar among friends, reflecting shared perceptions and behaviors, underscoring this deep connection.
So how does the GLI specifically foster these kinds of character-building friendships?
They intentionally cultivate a safe, shared value learning community that provides essential support and opportunities for emulation. They organize informal opportunities like shared meals, specifically designed to deepen friendships among participants, encouraging the sharing of conversation and thought that Aristotle championed as central to human connection.
Breaking bread together.
They also lead profound discussions on friendship itself as a leadership practice, using powerful texts like Augustine's Confessions or a poignant letter from Clementine Churchill on the importance of accountability in relationships.
Wow, using historical letters.
And crucially, they foster an environment of mutual correction. Facilitators actively model vulnerability, opening the door for participants to offer candid, constructive feedback and support to each other, citing historical examples like Benjamin Franklin's experience of adding humility to his list of virtues after a friend's gentle feedback.
Ah, Ben Franklin again.
They even suggest the powerful idea of accountability partners among participants, individuals who commit to supporting each other's virtue cultivation journey.
That's a truly holistic and incredibly inspiring approach to character development, seamlessly connecting individual effort with powerful community support. This deep dive really underscores how character development isn't a collection of isolated traits, like a random list of attributes, but rather a deeply interconnected, dynamic system.
Yes, like a complex living organism where each part supports the whole.
Absolutely. The concept of super habits from that book reinforces this beautifully. It emphasizes that the cardinal virtues, temperance, courage, prudence, or practical wisdom, and justice, along with their many subsidiary virtues, are not independent. They are intricately interconnected and mutually reinforcing.
So practicing one super habit or one foundational virtue can ripple outwards, making others easier to cultivate.
Right. It truly creates an upward spiral, as the GLI found with gratitude and humility, where decreasing self-focus naturally increases positive affect, empathy, and other regarding behavior.
It's like having an anatomy of virtue. As a roadmap, strengthening one muscle makes the whole body stronger, leading to a virtuous cycle of continuous personal growth and ethical resilience.
And it's crucial to remember that cultivating virtue isn't just about individual benefit, though it certainly leads to personal health, less stress, greater satisfaction, and inner peace, as Super Habits highlights.
Important benefits, but not the whole picture.
The Carrari Journal's research clearly shows that it's also fundamentally about contributing to the common good and fostering more ethical, resilient societies. A virtuous character ultimately leads to ethical resilience and adaptability, essential qualities for navigating our rapidly changing, often uncertain, and increasingly complex world.
It's about being able to stand firm and act well no matter what challenges arise, both for yourself and for the community.
What an incredible journey into the enduring pursuit of virtue and character development. We've seen that virtue is fundamentally about cultivating character, not just rigidly following rules or aiming for specific outcomes.
Focusing on the who, not just the what.
And powerfully, we've discovered that this character can be intentionally cultivated and profoundly strengthened through practical exercises and structured strategies, drawing profound wisdom from both ancient philosophy and cutting-edge modern research.
This deep dive offers you, the listener, a powerful, actionable framework. Whether you're facing personal setbacks, navigating complex professional dilemmas, or simply seeking a deeper sense of meaning and purpose in your life, understanding and actively practicing these virtues can profoundly transform your approach to the world,
It provides that internal moral compass we discussed earlier.
enabling you to live a life of greater integrity, resilience, and true flourishing.
The sources remind us that living a virtuous life is a lifelong commitment, a journey lived moment by moment, day by day. It's not about achieving some elusive perfection.
Definitely not. It's about the continuous effort and sincere intention to do good and to be good, to constantly refine that internal compass.
So here's an important question for you to consider as you go about your day, as you reflect on this deep dive. In a world constantly pushing us towards external validation, instant gratification, and often superficial achievements,
A world that often pulls us away from virtue.
what single virtue, if consistently practiced, could unlock the most significant positive change, not just in your own life, but in the lives of those around you, and perhaps even in the wider world you inhabit?
That's a powerful question to sit with.
And what small daily habit, perhaps one inspired by the Stoic practices or the GLI strategies we talked about, could you realistically start today to begin cultivating it?
Start small, but start.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep growing. We'll see you on the next deep dive.